Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today, I have the pleasure of having Van Sturgeon here in the lab with me. That's right, the man in the flesh, Van the Reno man, is here with us. And today, you're dialing in from Toronto. Am I correct?
That is correct, Ruben. Thank you very much for having me, and I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you. So yeah, it's gonna be great stuff.
Absolutely. So first, I gotta set presence here. I gotta put things into context because you've done such great work. And, we were just talking about this offline, but when we talk about the experimenter, you're an embodiment of an experimenter. And that's who we choose to have here in the lab. Why? Because you have such a broad knowledge of real estate across the board, from land development, land acquisition, subdivisions, custom homes, construction, renovation, single family, multifamily, right? So we always love to find out, especially with a guy like you, which experiment you started with first. And of course, I almost left out general contractor. And this is one of the things that you're very passionate about, because you're able to really help people with their fresh renovations, etc., which we will get into. But I got to ask you, when I look at this, this portfolio that you have of over 1,000 units, the successful businesses that you have within, which I'm excited to talk about because I love vertically integrated businesses. I gotta ask you, Van, which experiment fell into your lab first to help us kind of rewind and come full circle to how you've been able to embellish such a wonderful and such a well-established career in the real estate industry?
Well, I was born and raised in Chicago, and I got thrown into the business growing up. My parents were immigrants to the country, and they were scurrying around trying to save up as many dollars as they could and to buy their dream home. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment down on north side of Chicago with my little brother. And as they were saving up their money, they came across this whole this opportunity to buy an apartment building that we were living in. And so they put their monies together and borrowed some from family, and they put the down payment to purchase this apartment building. And that happened in the late 70s. And in that course of buying that building, it was at the time a great opportunity because it was fully occupied. The numbers made sense. But in the late 70s, things started to change in the economy. There was a mass migration out of the city into the suburbs. And all of a sudden, this building that was fully occupied started to suffer vacancy. And you started to get that criminal element and all that kind of stuff coming in, drug dealers and stuff. It got to the point where it got so bad where there was landlords who couldn't hold on to their properties and were literally on purpose torching them. They would light up their buildings and collect insurance money because they couldn't hold on, because you need to have an occupied building in order to be able to pay your bills and pay your mortgage. So this is what I can walk on. I can recall the buildings, that so many of them that were just in our neighborhood that went up in flames. So in the midst of that, we were forced to, as a family, have to do everything that we could to be able to survive. Whether it's painting, cleaning toilets, roof, replacing the carpet, cleaning, whatever it took for us to be able to survive and hold on to that investment, we did. And as a family, we were able to get through that difficult period of time, but it gave me a basis of experience on, repairs and contracting and doing the little things, from replacing an electrical outlet to a light fixture, whatever it took. And so we were able to get out of that period of time. Things started to get better, and it turned out to be a great investment for my parents. I went off to university, graduated, came back, and I had aspirations of being a lawyer, but I really enjoyed general contracting and construction and renovation. And so I broke the news to my parents that I wasn't interested in pursuing that. And I went off in Chicago and I started my general contracting business. I started hustling and knocking on doors, talking to people, trying to get work. And then over that period of time, I started developing that business. I started creating relationships with people. And I kept running into or seeing the same individuals that were buying these properties. They were real estate investors. These are people that would either flip properties or do buy and hold strategies. And it was through that being exposed with that, and in addition to the experience I had with my family, my parents, I started to branch off and do it out of my own. So at one hand, I had this general contracting business that I was I was developing and it was growing. And at the same time, I started dabbling flipping homes. And I got started my first flip was in 1991. And the amount of money that I made, Ruben, from that one flip, was pretty much in that 5 month period that I did that flip, from the time I bought it to selling it, I generated $30,000, somewhere in that range, which was roughly the average salary that somebody would make for the whole year.
Yeah.
So I was really sucked into this. That this is really opportunity to be able to create some real wealth. And I can't say that I planned all of this. It was just something that I always tell people that I get young folks that come up to me and they struggle to figure out what they want to do with their lives. I keep stressing to them that I'm a believer in the universe and God, and I believe that everybody has been blessed with a very minimum, at least one gift, something that you're really, really good at. And for some people, it might be baking. It might be, for some people, singing. For some people, it might be taking photographs. For me, it was construction and renovation. I was really good at that. I'm a great problem solver. I can see beyond walls and understand where things go and what needs to, correct issues and problems. And I'm passionate. I love it. I love properties. I love buildings. Yeah. And so for me, walking into the business of being a general contractor was natural for me. And then moving into real estate investing was just a natural progression. And then through that, developing that portfolio, I would stumble into things. So after I think it was 90th door that I was able to accumulate, it got to the point where why am I paying a property manager? Why don't I create my own property management company? And then because of the relationships that I had in the industry with other real estate investors who had portfolios, it was natural for them to bring those portfolios over to me, because oftentimes they didn't want the issues associated with property, like managing their portfolios, or they had too many. If you only got 20, 30 doors, it's not worthwhile for you to have a property management company. But so that's where things started to progress. And then from there, I would have properties that I would acquire that had excess land. And so I got into subdividing. So there would be, if there was one house with an extraordinary lot, I would subdivide it. And all of a sudden I would have two more lots in addition to the house that I had. And so I got into construction, building a home on that. And so you can see how things developed into custom homes, subdivisions. Yeah. And yeah, so I've been there've been bumps along the way, and I've been blessed, definitely been blessed. And I'm very thankful for everything that I've had, but it hasn't been an easy road. I've made my share of mistakes and tumbles along the way. I've sought out coaching and mentorship and books. You name it, I've done it. And I've always deferred and tried to I've always believed in folks doing everything they could to make the investment in themselves before they do anything else. So a lot of folks will run out and want to buy their property quickly, hurry. No. Don't make that investment in a property. First, make that investment in yourself. And once you've been able to get that and you're fully confident and have the skill set to be able to get out there, that's when you go out and you start making moves and start growing a portfolio.
Wow, you left so many gems in there that I want to unpack for a second. So first of all, I want to highlight that I love that you said natural progression, because I just had this conversation with a young lady she was in Hong Kong. Actually, we're just talking about like progression of our businesses, and one of the things that I had said was that very few businesses have success from just that first, oh yeah, this is what it's going to be. What happens is you get on that road, and then once you start traveling on that road, you end up identifying either things that you're really good at, opportunities along the way, decide to take an exit, decide to carpool with somebody, like whatever the thing is. But until you get on that road, those things won't happen and you won't see those things. So, with that said, I want to take a step back, because you said investment in yourself. And I want to kind of just rewind a little bit, because you had taken the path of someone who saw his environment and wanted to, create a better life. You want to get to law school, etc. I want to cover that gap while you were, because you went from being in Chicago, fixing things around the home, to survive. And that, I don't know, did that plant something there? Did that plant the seed, or was that just normal as a kid? You grew up, didn't even think about real estate, went to law school, and then that bug came back again. Can you talk about that little?
Sure.
I don't think it's a little gap. It's a large gap between being a child and university. So I'm kind of curious as to what was happening in your mind between now and then, if you can recall.
Absolutely. No. And that's a great question. And actually it's a question that I don't think anybody's really asked. And I'm going to be very honest with you. Like, it was a really difficult and miserable time in those late 70s, early 80s. It was palpable. And it was, when you have that experience where your father and mother are struggling, it really hits you, and you can feel it. They didn't have to say anything. You can see it in their eyes, in their mannerisms, in their actions. I remember one Christmas where there wasn't enough money, and there were no presents underneath the Christmas tree. It was that dire. There was times where it was tough. And so when coming out of that experience, on one hand, it was positive in that I learned a whole bunch of stuff. It was kind of negative. It was something that I really, at the time, did not want to. I wanted to disassociate myself from it, and that's when I went off to go high school, university. And as in the midst of going through that university is when I started to understand that even though there were some negative elements associated with that, there's a lot of also positive that I saw in it as well. I'm naturally a problem solver. I'm naturally a person as a kid growing up would grab something, break it apart, and put it back together again, and try to understand how it worked. And buildings are structures that are components. There are a variety of different components that you put together in order to build something. And so I've always had that desire, and I still do. Like, I love tearing into things and understanding how they work. And construction was part of that. So on one hand, it was negative, but then I was able to draw with the positive out of it. And that's the reason why I decided to move forward in that direction. I really enjoyed. There's times when, Ruben, I find myself staring at it, and I have my wife tap me, or somebody, or one of my people tap me on the shoulder. Is everything okay? I'm stuck mesmerized looking at my buildings or my properties. I love the structures and the nuances and the details associated with it, from the roof pitches to the caulking to the windowsill, and this. Like, I just love looking at it. I'm admired by it. I'm amazed by how this thing has been built up, and I own it, and it's mine. I don't know. It's
no. That's a very.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but I really truly feel. I enjoy looking at the structure and knowing that it's mine, but just the way it's put together, so I find it fascinating and amazing. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I guess one of the gaps I want to cover is during the time between when you went to school and whatnot, because I think where I'm trying to get here is sometimes you're on this path and you're like, this is the path that I'm doing, but I'm curious as to if there was always that genius and that thing that was tapping your shoulder that you just weren't listening to until you started really listening to it. And this is just going a little layer deeper, but I'm curious because there might be some listeners in a position where they're doing one thing, maybe even because they're really good at it. And I know you talk a lot about, how you didn't have that fulfillment. And I'm just curious for someone who's in that stage, if they just need to tap into that, if they find themselves, let's say, staring at something or spending more time trying to get pulled into another direction. I'm just very curious as to how if you actually experienced that, or if it was kind of a change of you said, that's it, I want to do a drastic change in my life, where you kind of felt it while you were still in school and while you're growing up.
I felt it. It was a summer before my final year of university where I had to make a decision. It was in the summer that I spent I was in Chicago, and I remember walking around trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. And then I started to sort of break it down and understand what I was looking for, what made me happy, what was I keenly interested in. And it came around to this whole idea of constructing and renovations, and that's the direction I decided to go on. And then I don't know if that makes I had that I had that epiphany. I had that epiphany because it was a difficult conversation to have with my family, because
absolutely, that's what
they had, they wanted to see, like, every parent's desire is to see their kid with a suit and tie and either be a lawyer, doctor, one of those types of things. And I had my opportunity. I got accepted to law school, and I had to have that difficult conversation with them and explain to them. So it was that summer where I did some soul searching, and I came up with this thing that I really enjoyed and I had this level of experience that that I wanted to tap into and continue to. I thought it made me happy. It made me happy.
That's good. So let's fast forward. You said a key word, and I appreciate you kind of taking us a step back a little bit, because I think that can help depending on what level you're on. If if there's that tap, is there's that itch to kind of go for it. I think that's important, but you got to be present and aware, have that awareness to listen to it. But let's fast forward. You talk about self-education, so I want to go into that. You said you're really good at it, and clearly you are, not only with what you've been able to do for yourself, but now where you're getting that fulfillment later in your career when you can help others kind of see that light as well. Let's talk about the investing yourself. If I have a genius, maybe it's very similar to you, and I have that touch. What was that lowest hanging fruit next step? Because I love how you talk about the natural progression, which we're going to get into with, and you could kind of see it in your trajectory. But what was the first thing for you? Like, I'm getting my GC license, I'm going to start reading books. What was that next step when you made that decision? I'm getting out of law school, I'm going to do this thing, and now I kind of have to educate myself a little bit more on it. What did that look like for you? And maybe what would you have changed?
Well, what I at the time was I had the coming out of university, I had the luxury of being able to still live with my parents. So it wasn't like I had to had that additional expense of a house or an apartment or a family or somebody, a wife that I had or kids that I had to deal with. So when you're at that age and you can run pretty lean. And I guess that gave me sort of an opportunity to be able to go in and learn in the process while I'm engaged in it. So I would be able to price out things more competitively, more aggressively than others who are in the business, because they have much more overhead than I. So in the midst of doing that, I learned business on the fly. And I had that luxury because I didn't have the overhead that some other businesses had. Yeah. I can't say that I did not. And at the time, this is a long, long time ago, Ruben, they didn't have at the time courses or certifications.
Biggerpockets.com. I wasn't there. The forums weren't there.
No, they didn't have any of those types of things.
What a time to be alive, huh?
Well, you know what? It's some respects it's good and bad that we have the internet. It's good because there's a lot of information out there. But it's also bad.
I'm glad you went there. You're gonna say, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm so glad you hit this. You're gonna say analysis paralysis. Is that what you mean? Yes. Where you find, and I'm so glad you're saying this, because sometimes not knowing, I don't know if you would agree with me, is even better than knowing too much information, like too many risks, which is evidently going to stop you. That's what happens to people sometimes, where maybe they're in too deep. They're like, I'm not taking that. That's too expensive. I'm not, like, because they have these old beliefs, or they have too much knowledge and maybe it's not the right knowledge. And so that's interesting that you say that. So I guess with you, without the internet, without Bigger Pockets, shout out to biggerpockets.com. I know a lot of you guys know that. Mm-hmm. What was next? Did you tap into somebody in the neighborhood?
Even back, the reason why I brought that up, I'm going to go a little bit further, and I'm going to say to you that it was a blessing not to have the internet back then, because you were forced to reach out and find associations, physical people, physical relationships you had to create with people to get more insight and knowledge. Yes, you had your share of books back then that you could pick up and read. But if you really want to get intimate knowledge about to put the pieces together, you had to join your local real estate investment association, which existed back then. There was opportunities to be able to network with real estate investors, real estate agents, and all of a sudden create that, that power team of people that you can glean information from. Right now, unfortunately, with the internet, we have this information at our fingertips, and it's nice to watch a YouTube video of me or talking about how to renovate your property or do this or do that, but it misses the ability for you to be able to ask questions, because not everybody processes of information at the same time. There's only so much that a course can go so far in terms of delivering results, and a one-on-one opportunity to be able to engage is something that should cost you more, but it's actually much more beneficial, because it gives you an opportunity to be able to ask some intimate questions that you'll definitely come across.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So you went to those, and I'm going to help us kind of tie this together. So you went to those associations, etc. Why GC? Is that, did that come in first, or would the flip come first? Was it the general contracting that came, or was it the flip that came first?
No. I was a general contractor. I started in 88, 89, and I was out there on a hustle, and I was developing relationships. And in 1991 was my first flip. And, and that came from, again, from the experiences from seeing these guys. And I'm an inquisitive kind of person. I would ask questions about how much they bought, how much back then, it was not easy to get information, Ruben. Back then, for me to go get the listings for, the area, and they would produce, the real estate board would produce books. These books would be this big, and then would release them depending on where you were every Thursday. And then if you're really serious into the game, you would go to your local real estate broker, agent, whatever, stand there, wait for them to come hot off the presses, and you would grab your book. And you would go, there were sections for things for sale, for rent, and you would go there and you try to that was what we were dealing with. And it was, the access to information was much more restricted, but also the opportunities existed. There's more opportunities back then because of that too, right?
Really?
So,
Why do you say that? I'm curious. Why do you say there was more opportunities?
There was more opportunities because the access of information wasn't as readily available as it is today.
Oh,
Right
so it's
now.
almost like weeding them out.
Yes. Yes. If I had to
man.
go get in line to grab hot off the press, literally a book, and go through it versus me going to Zillow, boop, boop, boop. In 30 seconds, I can show you, I can go into an area and give you comparables. I can immediately decipher through the internet what's cheaper, what's more expensive. I can find out what the taxes are, all that kind of stuff. You didn't have that information back then.
So this is interesting, Van, because to me, I didn't even think we were going to go there. So this is why I love doing this. So I was going to say, and I'm still going to say this, that it makes, when you look back, a guy like you in the 80s and the 90s, you want to tip your hat, and I'm doing it right now to you, for the hustle and grit that it takes to get to where you are today, because it's a very different animal, right? But then what's also interesting is with that hard work, you also are playing in a smaller pool because people aren't willing to do that kind of work. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna go even further. I'm gonna say that the good old days were easier than they are right now.
Stop it.
Ruben.
Say that one more time.
Ruben,
The
it's
good old.
easier.
This is so interesting. Why do you say that? Bring it home.
I'm going to tell you why, because the cost associated with you going to go and get the information is a commodity, and information costs money. And and for you to be able to go on the internet and get it for free versus you going out there, then it's difficult for people to be able to grab that. And in the good old days, it was difficult for people to grab that. So as a result, it acted as its own filter, it differentiated us, the ones that are on the hustle from not, versus now everybody can be a hustler. And so you got a lot more people coming into the game than before. That being said, deals exist all around us every single day. Never use that as an excuse. It might be a little bit more difficult. Yeah. And times, ebbs and flows happen in the marketplace.
Well, it levels out the playing field. And I want to interrupt you, but it levels out the playing field because there's more technology now. So it evens out the playing field. Would you not say it? Kind of. More competition, more technology, more access. Where were you going to go with that? Bring it home. I'm sorry.
No. Again, I come from a philosophy and I see it. I don't struggle in getting deals every single day. My email inbox is filled with opportunities. But for the person walking into the industry for the first time, it's easier for them back 30 years ago than it is today. I was doing BRRRR strategy before there was even a BRRRR. You buy a depressed asset, you would sprinkle some renovations into it, you will force the appreciation of value, you will refinance, you go into your next property. That existed, that's always existed. But just the sheer amount of information that's out there it's decreased the value of it because there's so much of it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on the money there, Van. So Van, let's talk about it right now. We're right in the meat and the potatoes of this. What is the biggest pain point, obstacle? I think you and I were talking about this offline with people. As soon as they say the word renovations, as soon as they say the word contractor, now it's great that we have some great context here because you're a contractor and you have that background. You've obviously evolved into doing a lot more other things than just being a contractor, but you have that context for us here in the lab. What is the biggest obstacle that you hear that people are struggling with renovations? Is it just a lack of estimates? Is it a lack of trust with a contractor? What is it out there that people are struggling with that you see as the most that you could bring here to us?
Sure. There's a number of things I constantly hear, but the first one that I can is the lack of available contractors or tradespeople. That you'll make a phone call and very few of them will return your phone call. That's a common complaint.
Why is that, by the way?
Well, I mean, we're right now in an overheated real estate market where there are lots of people looking to renovate and improve their properties. And as such, you're going to see more contractors are going to be a lot more busier now than they were 3 or 5 years ago. That being said, there are still good contractors out there available, but the issue becomes you as a person reaching out to them are not reaching out to them properly for that to entice them to actually return your phone call.
I'm so glad you went there. What makes you, Van, contractor hat? Let's say you're in the contractor hat. I want to call you, or if you think what makes you pick up a phone call versus what makes you not pick up a phone call?
So first of all, as a successful contractor, I have a list of clients that I service that have been giving me ongoing business. By virtue of that, I am busy. Good contractors, good people, good work in any field are busy. You're busy, Ruben, because you're good at what you do. If you're not busy, then there's an issue. And so if you reach out to me outside of my network of people that I know, I'm not rushing to find out if I want to quote on your work. Now, that being said, if you present your this opportunity to me in a fashion where it entices me to make the investment of time and money into looking at your opportunity and pricing it, then I will go ahead and do that because there's a cost involved. There's only so many hours in a day. For me to actually get, I'll get 20 phone calls. Out of those 20 phone calls, every one of them requires time and requires money to put an estimate together for me to submit to you. Now, where am I going to spend that time, that energy? Am I going to spend it to clientele that I have an existing relationship with, or am I going to say, or this random phone call I get out of nowhere? So I get phone calls from people that come from references or from already existing clients. Number one. If you want to break through to deal with a guy like me who's a successful general contractor, you have to present yourself that you are a professional, that you have all your ducks in order, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And
can you give some I's and T's and cross that would make you, okay, this guy sounds like a sharp guy or gal?
Sure. Okay. As my position as a general contractor, I would receive a phone call request to price out a particular project, and the project would be given to me, and there would be a detailed scope of work. An actual document would arrive to my door, just like every commercial project that I've ever bid on. There's a document there that tells me what it is that we're looking to accomplish. I would have that in front of me, and immediately that would immediately elevate you on the residential side. 95% of the projects that are out there don't have anything like that. It just fly by the seat of your pants. If I came to your place, Ruben, you would grab me by your hand and we would walk around your property and you would aimlessly point at things that you want to accomplish, look at, do it, you're not sure about, and then I'd be out of there. Because I'm a successful contractor because I do turnover. I go in, get my job done, and move on. And I move through projects. There's no money for me being stuck in a project, waiting for you to make a decision on what color paint you want on your walls or the choice of what kind of toilets you want, because you can buy a toilet for $100. You can buy a toilet for $1,000. You know how many different varieties of paint types there are? Not colors, types. There's latex, there's acrylic, there's oil-based, you name it. There's so many varieties out there. If you don't have all that information put together, it's just not worth what I don't want to deal with you. So that's why I have clients who come to me and they complain, oh, I've called 20, some odd general contractors and only 4 of them showed up. Well, that goes to show me there's something wrong. There's a problem there. It's not because all these guys are busy. It's just because you are not prepared. You're not, these good guys, they don't want to waste their time and give out free advice and show up. And the ones that you will track are pretty much the dodos, the ones that haven't, that are new in the business. And those are the ones you're attracting. Those are the ones that if you do decide to hire them, you're going to be hiring them at your peril.
Wow. I love that. You gave
Does that
us
make any
so much.
sense?
No,
Does that make
no,
sense
that
or
made
what?
so much sense. I'm so glad you went there, and it's we're so, again, lucky to have you in the lab with us, because we have some good contacts, because you're an investor and also a general contractor. So wow, talk about the natural progression. So you've done contracting. So I guess I'll ask this because I've worked with a few, but not at a very, very deep level. As a general contractor, now you're also working with other subcontractors, if I'm correct. How do you make sure that those subcontractors represent you well? Like, what is the kind of relationship? I'm sure over time you've kind of fostered that, but what are you looking at now? Because it's a two-way street to make sure that you bring somebody underneath your leg to represent your business, your face of the business.
Ruben, we're always looking for that unicorn contractor tradesperson, person that's going to give you the best price, the best quality, and it's going to show up on time whenever you need them. And unfortunately, those types of contractors or people in general don't exist. You're lucky if you get 2 out of the 3. And so when you look at an individual that you want to do business with, you have to determine where they're coming from. What's the good sides and the bad sides, the good qualities, the bad qualities associated with them, so that you then plug them in to that particular project that you're doing. So I, as a general contractor, I have a Rolodex of electricians, plumbers, painters, and I know who they are. They're small, medium, large operators, and they all bring a different set of skills or qualities to the table. If I'm looking for a project where I'm looking to be lean and mean on, I might very well go with that single operator who does good work, but is going to give you a great price, but he's going to take a lot longer than a mid-sized, larger company that's going to charge you more money. But when I pick up the phone, they're there in 2 hours. And so you gotta, I always look at whenever I want to sort of take a step back and look at the project in general as a real estate investor. You always have to put a goal together. What is it you're looking to accomplish in that project? And then off of that project, you develop that scope of work, and then you identify the contractors, the tradespeople, whoever you're working business with, to be able to get you to be able to realize that goal. And so you choose people that will be able to get you the most efficiently to that goal. And so if I have a rental property where time is of the essence, then I might be willing to and will be willing to pay a premium to the bigger operators. The guys are going to show up when they're supposed to show up, bang it out, versus if this is my own home. If it's my own home, I'm going to be more inclined for quality, and I wouldn't be so much concerned about the time, that kind of stuff. So these are things you got to always look at. Like, it's not decisions you can make in a vacuum. There's a lot of variables involved. And so a lot of people just go, it's always easiest to go cheap with the cheapest guy. Yeah. You tender it out, and you get 6 electricians or 6 contractors, and you go, and it's as a real estate investor, it's very hard to resist that temptation to go to the cheapest guy, because at the end of the day, this is a business we're after, right? Like, we're trying to maximize our profits.
Return on
but
investment.
you gotta really look into, you gotta really dig in and understand where these quotes are coming from, and make a decision on using the proper person.
Wow. Would you say, what's your take on this? I'm curious. Would you say that your general contractors are, what's the word I'm trying to use? Almost like, when I hear the position, it's like being a GM. Like, there's just so many moving pieces. Would you say the word I was looking for, and I don't know, maybe you can help me pull it out, as not like taken for granted or undervalued. And like, I feel like that is huge when it comes to delivering a project. Like, what is your take on that? If I would say, do you feel like you guys, general contractors, are underappreciated? I think that's the word.
Okay. I don't feel that I'm underappreciated with the clientels that I do business with.
Yeah,
Because I'm able to deliver. I don't have relationships with these people that have only lasted 6 months. These are 6 years, 15 years. There's some guys that have been, for over 20. So they understand and value what I bring to the table, and they don't even bother create a relationship that they trust me, that they don't even bother seeking out other quotes, because they understand, they appreciate what the level of trust that they've established. And I don't gouge. I do my job. I know what they're looking for in their particular projects, and we go out there and we bang it out.
Yeah.
So contractors, the problem here is that as real estate investors, or just in general, this term contractors is confusing the terminology. You have a contractor who's a general contractor, then you have tradespeople, then you have handyman, then you have a builder. Those are really pretty much the 4 or 5 that are floating out there. A general contractor's responsibility is to manage the whole project and hire trades to do the work. So trades are an electrician, a plumber, a painter. Those are trades. And all they do is paint. All they do is plumbing. All they do is electrical. And oftentimes people believe that a contractor is going to do everything. And there are guys out there who will do everything, but I classify them as more like handymen than I do general contractors. Because handymen are people that know a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and a little bit of that, and they don't know the whole thing. They don't specialize in anything. And oftentimes real estate investors will hire handymen to do their work. And when you deal with a handyman who doesn't have any processes, systems, anything like that whatsoever, they're just handyman, you get horrible results. Don't expect a child to do a man's job.
Yeah. No, there's a difference. And I'm so glad you went there, because I think people need to understand that, and that, terms are used very loosely, and especially a professional like yourself, I think it's very clear that we make the distinction of what is the cream of the crop and what is not. And I love what you said about people who I've done business with for a long time for a reason, who are getting big business, understand my value. And I love that you said that, because then it makes you think, well, first of all, not all general contractors are created equal, and contractors and GCs are not the same as tradesmen as well. And right. So we need to be very clear on that. And I think people use that interchangeably without understanding the quality of people's work. And a professional like you. And then you said something that I was going to ask you, and you kind of threw me an alley-oop here. Niche. One thing I was going to ask you is, as you were going into the general contract as a general contractor, and the kind of work you're seeing, what kind of niches our listeners may not know of? Is it commercial? Is it residential? Like, what kind of niche did you fall into? And is it like that, or is it more of, no, Ruben, I'm a GC for...
No, you're absolutely right.
Okay, got it.
I told you, in every business, you got to niche it down, and that's where the nuggets and that's where the gold is. And so there are contractors out there that specialize in new construction. There are contractors, and then you could bring it down even further. There's contractors that specialize in new construction, in gas stations, in banquet halls. Wow. Same thing with there's general contractors that specialize in renovations, and there's specific renovations and the type of clientele that you do business with. You can do with the regular Joe Blow down the street, or with the real estate investors that are out there. You can specialize and there are general contractors out there that specialize and niche it down to only one particular segment of the consumer. Real estate investors is an example. I specialize as a general contractor. I specialize in dealing with exclusively real estate investors. And then once you have identified that niche, you cater your offering to those individuals. What drives a real estate investor to choose you versus somebody else? And so you got to figure all that stuff out.
Now, were you saying an example, or were you speaking for yourself when you say you?
I'm giving that as an example.
Okay, so yeah. What did you end up picking, and why?
I kind of, because of my relationship with these real estate investors, I kind of chose that. But then my business also grew and evolved. So I not only now exclusively one niche, I'm several, and I also have.
Well, yeah, and that's what happens when you get to. I love you said that. Once you get to that level, right? I think people, you look at successful entrepreneurs like yourself, and you have multiple companies underneath that umbrella. You didn't start off with multiple companies and dividing your attention to many. That you can't do that. You got to niche down first. Master one thing.
Yeah, you can't be everything to everybody. You can't be everything to everybody.
You got to say no. You got to say no. That's one of the things I've learned most recently is how to say no to business, because if it's not in alignment with where you're going, and that's actually, I think we had that conversation offline.
But Ruben, in the early days, it was difficult to say that. It's difficult to figure out because you got bills to pay.
Now, and it's still difficult now. You know what? It's funny. It's still difficult when the money is good, because I think psychologically, and this is the thing, I just had this conversation with my buddy yesterday in his business. I think psychologically, even when you're looking to make a shift and you're looking to go premium or looking to go niche, it's so hard psychologically. I think no matter how good you have it. Now, imagine when you don't got it and you got to feed your family. That's very different to say no. But I do believe now, this is something that I think probably one of my realizations in this year is when you say no, you then open up the opportunity for the thing that you're looking for. When you say yes, now you're busy with that. Maybe you're busy with that clientele, and that clientele refers you people that maybe you don't want to work with, but you can't say no. Now you're in too deep. Now you have more experience than I do. So I would love to hear if you resonate with that at all.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, absolutely. Absolutely. Although I will say that it takes really a lot of strength to be able to say that no, but it's in my experience and what I have seen and talking to others, it's amazing how universe, God works when you're able to get it down and you pull away and you create a void, how universe, God fills that void with what you're looking for. And so, yes, but at the same time, it's very difficult because, again, if you are struggling and you're trying to accomplish something and you know that the direction, you can see where the direction of your business should be going, your life should be going, but you have this temptation of just taking on because you got bills to pay. I can understand, and I understand the frustration and the temptation to go down the direction, to be everything to everybody because you got bills to pay. But if you can resist that, if you can just stay on the path and have that goal and have that vision of where you want to be and create that void, it'll be filled with what you're looking for. There's something that I came across that I'm going to share with you. I'm pretty sure you've heard of. Is a quote, I believe, from that Tony Robbins. It's something along the lines of, there's two things that causes action. It's either anxiety or inspiration. I don't know if that makes any sense. If you're desperation and inspiration, those are, if you're you to be able to act, for you to able to act and be able to take a step forward in life, you have to either be inspired or you got to be desperate. And so that's sort of, I heard that and I was like, wow, yeah, man, it makes a lot of sense, because out of desperation, it's amazing what we can accomplish. Out of inspiration, it's amazing. Hope, how powerful it is. Is there anything more powerful? Love, and then hope.
Jeez, that's good stuff, and I'm still trying to soak it in. I love how these core values continue to come back as we have these conversations in the lab, because the formula is the same. I think no matter what you apply it to it, it's just so fascinating to hear these same, the secrets are there if you listen. And I love what you said about the universe too, because I know that's a thing. You guys are going to kill me because I can't think of the actor, but I believe there was an actor who the agent, I'm talking about, I don't know if this was Kevin Hart or someone else. It may have been Kevin Hart. I think so, maybe, but don't quote me on it, guys. And his agent said, we had this deal come in. It was something like when he was really struggling. It was like 40,000 or something, and I turned it down. And it's like, how could you? I'm literally like eating meal to meal. Like, how could you turn that down? And it was because his agent saw something bigger in him than just that. He said no, and the next deal was like $1 million or something. It was just ridiculous. Like, right. You're talking about a huge leap, and I think that's just important. And I know that can be a little bit, okay, Ruben, that's way out there, but the principles are the same, right? Whether, knowing what direction you want, kind of attracting the people, whether it was in the 80s or today, being in the circle that you want to be in, over delivering, referral business, long-term business, niching down, then going broad later, having that luxury. I love it. I love it, Van. And this is why I love having guys like you here, just to be able to talk about it, but be about it as well.
I listen, I like you touched on is something that I totally agree with. I have talked to people who have achieved great successes in their life, and all of our stories might be unique. They're all also the same in that we all have, and I'm sure that in your interview and talking to people that have achieved some success in their life, they've gone through the same processes and have established, these systems and things and they've gotten to where they are today.
Absolutely. So again, you're really good at segueing out of these things. And you gotta, I don't know if we gotta talk about this offline. I don't know. Do you have your own show?
I'm not. There's got to be. I God bless all of you guys who do these podcasts stuff like, because I know it's a lot of effort and work. So I try to. I like being Gus, but I'm not into doing one myself.
Well, listen, you're helping me out here. You could be my co-host. You said a keyword: process and systems. I want to talk about something you're very passionate about now, and you've evolved in your career. And we could be here. You've done so much. It's just very admirable. But now, one thing you're really tapping into, where you're able to find your fulfillment, is helping people. And you and I talked about and helping people with their renovations, their own renovations. And obviously, who is more qualified? I don't think there is anybody more qualified than you are to be able to kind of walk them through that. You talked about, investors, and you and I were talking about offline of maybe it's that, it's someone who's looking to do a cosmetic rehab, and they're sick and tired of maybe having to deal with someone who's not as qualified as you are to help them get through the process, because they don't have access to somebody like you. And so now you're looking to kind of give them the tools and add it to the tool belt, or like what I would call in the lab resources, test tubes, so to speak. So what processes and systems, what are people for in that genre, in that category, what are they missing? I think we kind of opened it up with that conversation, but let's talk about processes and systems that you bring to the table. What are most people missing from a process and system standpoint?
Sure. Over 30 years of doing this, you have to develop some type of a process or systems in order to be able to be successful and also be able to scale. And so one of the things that's a miss with real estate investors, and I want to niche it down to talking about real estate investors and not just your person who just bought a house is looking to do a renovation. We're talking about investors who want to do this for the sake of creating an investment portfolio for profit. So it's fun. One of the first things that folks sort of miss in that process is that they need to establish a goal associated with this particular renovation project, this rehab. And if it depends on the type of product and what it is that you're looking to accomplish with this property. If it's a rental property and you're looking to derive $1,200 a month, or if you're looking to flip a property, and you're looking to make $30,000, $50,000, that's great. Write it down, because everything associated with that renovation rehab needs to flow through that goal. And we take whatever steps, actions necessary to get us to that goal. So establishing a clear, defined goal is important. But we also need to go out in the marketplace and validate that goal, because it's nice. It's very nice for us to want $1,200 a month in rent. Yeah. But the market might tell you that because of your particular property and location, you can only get $800. It'd be nice if we want to make $200,000 on the flip, but market will tell you that it's not. So you've got to get out there in the marketplace and do your due diligence, which I find a lot of these newbies, young folks, don't want to do, because it requires effort and work. And there's only so much that you can do off the internet. You actually have to hop in your car and travel the neighborhood. You need to go visit these properties that are up for sale or for rent to understand what is it that these properties have that you need to incorporate within your renovation, and what are the expectations or the goals that you can establish there that you can reach. You got to validate that goal. So if I'm looking to generate $50,000 on a flip, what do I need to do to that property based on past sales or comparables that are existing in the marketplace? What do I have to do to my property? On a rental that I want to get $1,200 a month, Do I need to add a dishwasher? Do I need to add a tennis court? Do I need to paint the apartment? Do I need to finish the basement? Is the square footage the same versus what my property? These are all information you gotta pull out and you gotta figure it out. And then once you've been able to get that, you've got a good understanding of your marketplace and your property, then you move into the next step, which is then you create a list that I call needs and wants list. And what it essentially is, you do an inventory of the property, grab a sheet of paper and you put a line right down the middle, and one side's needs and the other side is wants. And then the needs side, whatever is required. If you got a broken window that's letting in the elements, you got to replace that. That's a need. If you got a foundation that's leaking, water's coming in, that's a need. It has to be repaired. But other things such as, the color of the cabinetry in the kitchen, light fixtures, carpeting, hardwood color, those types of things, unless they're a trip hazard, unless there's some sort of situation that are going to cause harm to you, those are put under the wants category. And the reason why we separate these two is that the next phase is we got to establish how much money we have in the kitty to be able to put toward this renovation, because we can want the moon, the stars in the sky, but we need to find the dollars be able to contribute to be able to make this renovation happen. So if I know that I only have $30,000 in my budget, then my choices of what I'm going to put into this property on the needs and wants list, I'm first going to go through my needs, and then I'm going to go into the wants side if there's any more money left in the budget. How do we establish a budget? Well, there's monies that we have cash-wise in our account. There's lines of credit. There's lots of opportunities, hard money lenders. There's lots of opportunities out there that a lot of folks are not exposed to. Even if you're a real estate investor, you don't understand. And that's where a seasoned veteran like myself can help people and determine you're finding where there's municipalities sometimes that have money to give out to.
Give us one, since you're in the lab here with us, give us one that is often very overlooked that you've used and that you think, oh man, people overlook this one and they don't even know it exists.
One recent that I talked about and I'll share with you is I get a notice from the municipality that says, hey, your property is in a floodplain and we want you to do everything you can to save us, to be able to combat that. So we will give you money to upgrade all of your foundation, weeping tiles, and all your piping on that particular property. And so this is something that costs $7,000, $10,000, $12,000. Why wouldn't I take advantage of that? And then improvement raise the value of my property. And that came free.
Is that something you got to seek out?
Sure, of course. You gotta be exposed to the process to understand that this is something that you should, check off your list. You need to go into and look into. There's opportunities from the federal government as well as from your local government that you should look into, because you'd be amazed how many efforts there are to make your home more energy efficient that you should take advantage of. I've taken advantage of upgrading my buildings to, at the time, commercial to these compact fluorescent tubes. You remember those light bulbs with the squirrels?
Absolutely.
I bought those 15 years ago. I didn't buy them. I got them for free from the government. I upgraded everything. So I ended up saving electricity. And I also got a light bulb that lasts 10 times longer. Now that technology has evolved to LED lighting. There's also another government program that says, hey, change the light bulbs in your particular property and we'll give them to you for free. We'll help you.
Is that like a grant that you take, or is that like a write-off?
Usually how it works is that you will submit an application. They will approve your application. You go get the work done by a bona fide contractor or tradesperson. You get a sign off, they verify it, and then they give you back your money. So you pay the tradesperson and then they send you a refund check. Beautiful stuff. And you can improve the property. So why wouldn't I take advantage of that? And it's amazing how often you look at the statistics of people who take advantage of these programs, and it's staggering how low they are. They're out there, but then nobody wants to take advantage of them.
Same with opportunity zones. There's just a lot when it comes to that.
The real big granddaddy of them all is creating, once you've gone through that whole process, then you need to create a detailed scope of work. And it's actually a document that you got to put together, and you got to spend time on identifying all the decisions and issues and things that you want to accomplish within that renovation. You got to put it in this document. I am a general contractor that dabbles in the commercial side as well as on the residential side. And it's amazing on the commercial side, there isn't a project that I've seen that of substantial merit that doesn't have a scope of work, create a document that gives you a blow-by-blow account of pictures, diagrams, things that need to be done in that project. Yeah. But on the residential side, 95% of the projects out there don't have anything like that. So folks who don't have something like that, but they want to get something done, but they don't have something in writing, how is it? You're just setting yourself up for failure. Yeah. How is it that you can go reach out to contractors and tradespeople and say, I want a renovation to occur when you yourself are not sure or know what it is that you want? And there isn't a contractor or tradesperson that I know of, including me, that has a way to be able to crawl into your brain and pull out that matter, that information out of you.
Well, yeah, no one's doing it for you at whatever price you're giving them. That's one thing, right? I love that you're giving us some tactical and practical advice that, one can listen to and apply, because I love how you said, we talk about this, you're separating yourself from the pack, niching and all that. We've talked about it on the end from the general contractor, but now on the investors, to our investors listening is, you heard what Van said. He sees both sides. And one way you can separate yourself and have those firms calling you back is to do the extra work. And I'm sure that after we talk, Van, you're going to have to, I know, Van, you're looking to help people one-on-one, but this is something I'm very curious to talk to you about, because when it comes to having a framework and SOPs and scope of work, being able to help people put something together like that, that's a game changer. And I know that the industry needs something like that.
I totally agree with you, because unfortunately, if you were to go out there and do a Google search of what's out there, there's so much misinformation and so generalized information that scope of work, with all due respect, you can wipe your rear end with. It just doesn't hold water. It just doesn't get you over the hump to be able to, efficiently carry out a renovation where everything is on time, on budget, and you got control over your whole project.
Wow. So one thing I want to ask you about in right before is, you've done the renovations and you've done the new construction as well. Which one would you rather do and which one takes the most work?
Renovations take the most amount of work and effort because always there's an element of the unknown. Whether that's on the commercial side or residential side, renovations are always the most difficult and problematic. It's really, for me, easy peasy to put up a single family home or a 20-story apartment building. There are systems and everything is laid out. You have surveyors, you have everything banged out, where the electrical box is supposed to go, what everybody's role is within that process. On the renovation side, and I have renovated not only residential, obviously, homes, single family homes, but I've also renovated substantial buildings that are, that apartment buildings that are 100 years old that can't be knocked down. They have to be restored. And it is the amount of problem solving that you have to endure and deal with on those types of projects is a lot more dramatic. There's a lot more effort, a lot of work more associated with that versus new construction. So me, who likes to tinker, who likes to dabble and do that and play with, I'm into doing the renovation stuff. I love, there was a particular project recently where it was a 90 some odd year old apartment building that was being restored. It was 44 or 48 unit building. It was a substantial amount of money. It was a total gut job, but it was really fun and cool to deal with all the problems and issues that you had to deal with. Sometimes you'd have to pull your hair out, but there was other times it was just really cool to be able to solve a problem. I'm into problem solving.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's like a puzzle, right? Like being able to see the puzzle. Geez. First of all, I can't thank you enough, Van, for overstaying your time here. One thing I gotta ask you before you drop is, you've done subdivisions, you've done acquiring land, and I love how it kind of happened as you problem solved, right? And you said the key word, which I love, is natural progression. one thing I'm curious about as to where you're at now. When we fast forward, we saw the beginning, where you're at right now. What is your favorite, investment tool, and when I say that, let me be more specific, asset type within this 1,000 unit
Yeah.
plus of work that you've done and own and control, etc.
I really, I love all of them equally. I
They're your
tend to
babies.
like,
They're your babies. You can't
yeah,
pick.
like I'm still marveled by how a single family home is put together to that 18-story building that I own. So,
Hmm.
but I will, if I had a choice, if I had to make a choice between them, I would probably defer to multifamily, and I just the economies of scale, the actual structure itself. My preference would be multifamily, but it's we're getting into a situation right now, Ruben, where cap rates are so compressed, where you have now the stampede of the New York types and the investment bankers and the funds going into not only multifamily but into the mom pop multifamily, the
Oh,
6 to
really?
8, 12 unit, 18 unit. They're even going into creating portfolio of the single family homes.
Why is that?
One of the primary reasons why is that you have pension plans and you have investment funds that are mandated to generate X amount of dollars per year in return for their investors. And because they're not allowed to be as speculative, to go into the stock market and make investments there, they're forced to go look at other investment vehicles that are considered not as risky. So used to be that they could get their minimum 3-5% return on their fund from just making investments in the US bond, doing mortgages, stuff like that. But those types of fixed income kind of the interest rates are pretty low. And so as a result, they are scrambling, trying to find assets, trying to find vehicles that will generate them more return on their money, because that opportunity to go into the municipal bonds, the stock market, not stock market, municipal bonds and government bonds, that opportunity doesn't make sense for them anymore. So there more and more of them are migrating, and they're literally buying straights up and creating rental portfolios. That is happening right now. And it won't be until interest rates were to climb up where these guys will say, okay, maybe it's worthwhile for me to go back into whatever they're doing in the past. But it could be that they're here to stay.
I'm curious, Van, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this as we've seen the economy shift a little bit, even with virtual, even employees allowing their folks to work from home, and commercial offices now even kind of, I guess, sizing down, what's the word I want to use?
Downsizing.
Downsizing, right? So do you think that's also part of it now that the commercial kind of sector also has been hit where, and I know that there's a super connected, you talk about warehouses with, you got the Amazons of the world, that's always going to be there. But do you think that has something to do with it when you look at some of the states like New York, California, et cetera, where people are fleeing away from the taxes, they're going down to the South and et cetera, like all these things? Is that something you've seen as a thing, or is that there's just so many nuances that could be it? And really, Ruben, that's really not it. I'm curious.
No, I think that it's just specific to the geographical area. And I think just overall, I think that we've seen a slide in commercial, in particular on the retail side and office space. But I think all of those elements are going to return back, if they haven't already, and roar, because there's a lot of pent up demand that we have in, people are going to do things differently than they did before the pandemic. Like if I was a type that went out to a restaurant once a month, I'm going to, after this, all the dust settles, I'm going to appreciate going to a restaurant. I'm going to go more often to a restaurant. I'm going to be inclined to go more often and spend money on the luxuries that we took it granted for. And so I think all of those types of things are going to return back, if not, and are going to actually, I would probably I would look at buying restaurants, and I would look at buying office buildings if there is an opportunity. That's my take on it.
Really? That's very interesting.
I think there's going to be a snapback, and you'll be amazed at how far it'll snap back. Because I think although there will be a shift toward businesses trying to derive some benefits to having their employees work out of home, and employees will want to work out of home. There are just some things for the most part that can't be done at home, that you need to have that. Need to have that nucleus. You need to have that work environment, not only to spur people to work, but also to create that camaraderie and be able to work as one unit, move things forward. It's difficult. It's discombobulated. How can you imagine the value of this interview if it was face to face versus us doing this virtually? Yeah. Definitely great. It's great technology. It's wonderful, but there's a different experience. There's a level different. There's the nuances of our faces, stuff like that can't be captured through this medium. But by virtue of me having you next to me physically, you can gather that, and it's much more intimate, and there's a lot more that can be accomplished, I believe, in that kind of a setting versus what we have right now.
Well said. Well, with that said, I'll tell you what, when we open up the studio live, we'll definitely make sure, and we talked about this offline, that, you know, you got Toronto, you got Miami, so I know, and Chicago, so I know that somewhere we'll definitely be in close proximity, especially because I'll probably find myself in Toronto. So that's, you said it on the air. We'll have to make that happen in person live. But before you part, and I would love for you to, you know, if there's any you know, like I said when I opened up the show with you, is you're a great embodiment of being an experimenter, and then kind of really narrowing focus and doubling down and excelling at your craft, being successful and with it, what you're doing, with putting your mind set to it, and then going broad and building a lot of different businesses with it. So that's phenomenal. If there's one you know, lesson that sticks out at you, whether it was a specific point, whether it's now in your career or at midpoint sometime, you know, when you're getting by and you're looking to make those leaps, is there any lesson that sticks in mind that, you know, you wish maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you would have come maybe implemented on the earlier side? Is there something that jumps out at you?
There's a lot of things that jump out at me, and I've been fortunate. There's been certain junctures along my life path that I've come to, that through the grace of God, the universe, I was able to go one direction versus another. And there were at those certain junctures, something led me to go the direction I did. Part of that whole journey, I think that folks need to appreciate, is that if you want to get from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow, that you could go out there and trial and error and try to figure it out on your own. But I'm a real strong proponent, and everybody I seem to talk to that has accomplished something of merit, who's been successful, been able to reach their goals, have had some type of coaching, some type of mentorship that's been able to take them by the hand and navigate them through these treacherous waters of life and got them to a promised land. And I'm a strong proponent. I've spent a lot of money in it, and we talked offline, you have too. And I think that a lot of folks need to appreciate that this is coming from successful people who've done this. Maybe they should too. There's some, you know, it's like, I use this analogy all the time, and I'll use it on this interview. It's like trying to learn how to play a guitar. If you want to learn how to play the guitar, there's lots of information out there on the internet, YouTube, and you can buy books, and you can sit there, read them, and watch all the videos, and you know, you can muddle through and try to kind of figure it out on your own. It'll take you a lot of times. You can make a lot of mistakes, but you'll figure it out. Versus me hiring a music teacher that sits right beside me, shows me how to hold the guitar, how to strum the guitar, slaps me upside the head if I make a mistake. What is the value of that? And being able to get me from point A to wherever that point is in life, and having that person be able to provide me, what's the value of that? I think it's tremendous. And if there's ever an opportunity for me to be able to find an individual that can grab me by the hand and take me to a place, it's going to cost me money. It's going to cost me money. But what about the return if I can get quicker to that and, you know, to my goal? And what about in the process of me trying to figure it out, let's say through those YouTube videos and books that I've read, somehow along that way I make a mistake. In real estate as an example, and all pretty much walks in life, there's a lot of things that you can do along the way that you can make a mistake that can be devastating. There's a reason why, Ruben, right now, people drive around in their neighborhoods where they live and they see a garbage dumpster in front of their house, in front of a house in their neighborhood, and it's been there for 6, 7, 8 months. I could build a house in 3 or 4 months, a brand new house. But there's renovations that are undergoing. They're sitting there for 6, 7, 8 months. Why? Is because somebody doesn't know what they're doing. And they're oftentimes they're caught in a situation where they are strapped out financially. And in some cases, they are ruined financially because they made a misstep along the way. And so now if you have a trusted advisor beside you that can navigate you away from making that mistake, what's the value in that? I think I sign me up. I'm that guy. And I know you are too. Sign me up. I'll dish out the cash. I want to be able to sleep all night knowing that I have somebody who's going to take me from where I am today, where I want to be tomorrow.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So to all of our listeners, Van, I know that, vansturgeon.com is one of your resources, but I do want to make sure that I give you an opportunity to give our listeners an opportunity to find out how they can more connect with you. I know right now in the success that you have, one way you're finding fulfillment is to being able to help others go through that process that you talked about, that you see so often, where people are either being misguided or they don't have the right, information to do their own renovations or to work with someone who does. So with that said, as far as the call to action goes, where can people, kind of tap into, or where can we find out more about you to get a chance to work with you if we want to?
I appreciate that. Well, it starts with going on my website, vansturgeon.com. And there's a chock full of videos, podcasts I've been on, articles that I've published, ebooks that I've written. There's a lot of great content over there that will be able to guide you in the right direction to how to set up your real estate, learn the systems and processes in being able to establish a successful real estate portfolio. And part of that is learning the skill set of how to plan and manage your own renovation, because as a real estate investor, we're always looking to buy a great deal. And I don't know of any great deals that come with a bow tie on them. All the great deals I come across are ugly ducklings, diamonds in the rough. They need a lot of work in renovations and rehabbing. And so if I need, as a skill set, you need in order to be successful, you need to have a skill set that only finds a great deal, but also knows how to plan and manage those renovations. It's critical. How can you determine a great deal if you can't put a dollar value or the time associated with what work is needed on a property? So I welcome people to go on my website. There's lots of information to be able to help them out. In addition to, I'm on social media, Facebook. Reach out to me. I love engaging people, help people out. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I do.
Absolutely. We certainly will enjoy that. If you're listening and you're driving, keep your hands on the wheel. We'll include that in the show notes, of course. Van, we cannot thank you enough for stepping to the lab. And I got to ask you this right before you drop: Toronto, Miami, Chicago, which you got to pick one. Which one is it? The one born and raised, or what? What's the Toronto and Miami situation looking like?
Chicago is always going to be in my heart, but hey, you know what? I hate those winters though. I love that Miami. That's the reason why I'm down there, man. I love my Chicago, but I tell you, when it's minus 20 degrees or whatever the hell the weather is, God, that Miami feels so good.
There you go. So you know where to find, in Q4, end of quote Q4, you know where to find Van. He's gonna run away from be a snowbird and run away in that. I don't blame him. That's where I'll go to Atlanta as well. But we'll have to make that U-turn and also make our ways to Florida and connect. But thank you so much for stepping to the lab. And just like that, we are out.